education, Section 504, dyslexia, response to intervention. So it's pretty big department. So we serve a lot of different areas. And we work with anywhere from babies, typically age 3 and up, but we do have some babies that we work with all the way up to age 22. So this is my second year in Coppell ISD, and it's my pleasure to be here today with you to moderate this event. And I want to say thank you to the librarians, especially Sarah Silverthorne and JJ White for coordinating the event, and also to the Community Builders Committee for organizing and for prioritizing this important topic of living with disabilities. So I wanted to jump right in. We have some great panelists with us today, each one with their unique story. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, so we'll hear from each one of them, and then we'll have time for some questions and dialogue. So to get started, we're going to ask that each panelist kind of spend about 5 minutes telling us your story, anything that you want the community to know. And then don't forget, if you are joining us, if you have questions as we go along, go ahead and put them into the Q&A and we'll be sure to get to those. So Mary Reed, why don't we start with you?
Okay, thanks. Of course, I'm Mary Reed. I've been a paraplegic now for almost 50 years. Married almost 40. I have 2 children. Been in Texas now 40 years. Grew up in upstate New York. I was injured through surgery complications that it was my body, it was nobody else's fault but mine. And I was 19 years old. So being a sophomore in college, the transition was pretty difficult, but you just got to keep moving. And fortunately, I had some good friends that wouldn't let me. And that, when I was injured, it was way before ADA, way before Public Law 507. There was nothing accessible. I mean, my first car that I drove had parts from a Model T. My father knew somebody that was a polio victim in World War II. So I had parts of his hand controls, parts of a Model T, and some parts of a toilet all thrown together. And that was my first car that I drove. So it's been a long haul, but as I said, I've been married 40 years. I got 2 gorgeous kids. One lives in Bottom, Texas. My daughter lives in Seattle. I have 3 grandkids going from 11, 10, and 7. So that's my story.
So. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. Jack, can we hear from you?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Sarah, for hosting this meeting. I've been in Coppell now for 30 years. My location here, as I mentioned, right in the middle of Coppell, which you see me from. My wife and I have been married for going on 35 years in May. I'm considered hard of hearing. Like Mary, my hearing loss was diagnosed when I was 4 years old. Back in the dark ages, long before we had Americans with Disabilities Act, long before we understood what accommodations are legally, long before we knew what it took to mainstream young people with disabilities into the mainstream public schools. So back in 1966 is when my hearing loss was diagnosed. I'm profoundly deaf. My mom fought the State Board of Education of Iowa to get me mainstream with the help of some IQ tests done by University of Chicago. So I have personally lived the world of disability. Fast forward now to the year of 1994, Patty and I had John. John is now 27 years old. John has a disability. He lives in a group home in Crowley, which is south of Fort Worth. Been there now for 5 years. While I was at IBM just down the road here, I worked for IBM for 25 years. And I was taught, like Mary, don't let the disability define you. My parents taught me never give up. Back then we were called handicapped. Now we're called people with disability, and I'm using person first language. Many people didn't use that. They would say a handicapped person. They even talked about people being retarded back then. Very, very insensitive language back then. So my parents taught me to never give up. So my wife and I have been pleased to have 4 children. We have 2 beautiful grandchildren in the Houston area with our daughter and her son-in-law. But with John, it was through John's experience, and all 4 of our kids were born and raised in Coppell, that we got to know Debbie Gaunt. And then later I've gotten to know Misty Lynch. So Stephanie, please say hi to those fine ladies for me. I haven't talked to them in a while. When I was at IBM, I decided if I had to leave the second time, I wanted to be a financial advisor, because through Debbie Gaunt, Patty and I met an independent financial advisor through the school district that helped get our son John onto what I call the path of independence. So we got a lot of knowledge, we got a lot of guidance, we got a lot of direction, but we had to do the work. So we learned what it takes to get people on Medicaid, Texas Medicaid program waiver lists, get them positioned to get support from the federal government in the form of Social Security, supplemental security income, Medicaid. John has all of that. He also has the special need trust. So because of what TJ did for us, I felt if I had to leave IBM, I wanted to be a financial advisor and help people with 2 worlds: traditional financial planning, traditional needs, and people with special needs that only a financial advisor can help. So I've been able to, since I joined Edward Jones 2.5 years ago, build my practice so that I'm serving both communities of families like TJ did for us. So with that, I ended by saying I'm working with the state of Texas, Region 10. Before COVID-19 set in last March, I had already made 3, maybe 4 presentations to about 500 educators and parents across the Region 10. I also thank Stephanie with Misty Lynch's help. In the fall of 2019, I did a presentation at Brock Center, 2 presentations for parents with children with special needs to get them on the path of independence. So I'm delighted to be here and be able to help all benefit from the knowledge that we have to share.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that for sure. And I'm sure that as the program goes on, people will have lots of questions for you specifically. So thank you. Kyla, let's hear from you next.
Hi, I'm Kyla Nunez. I came to Texas when I was about 6. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in 4th grade. I am the only one in my family that has been diagnosed. I don't take any medication for it. When I was in 4th grade and definitely in middle school, I got a bunch of help from teachers and a bunch of resources that I'm able to use to be able to focus in class. And one particular teacher helped a bunch. Her name was Miss Gilbert. I still remember. Actually, this coming up week, I'm going to be able to start student teaching with her. And I'm going to be like in a Zoom class teaching students. Towards the future, I want to work towards becoming a lawyer and going to college. And that's it.
Thank you, Kyla. I appreciate that. It looks like we do have a question in the chat, so I'll get to that in just a second, but I wanted to do a few housekeeping things real quick first. Again, just reminding everyone that they can use the Q&A feature if they have a question. We understand that this topic may be new to some and near and dear to others. So we want to cultivate an environment that is free of judgment and that encourages curiosity and respect. So please feel free to ask questions and understand that the panelists also have the right to pass on a question if they're uncomfortable responding. As always, this is an opportunity to meet and get to know your Coppell neighbors and learn something that you may not know about them. So with that, we will go to our first question. It's for Mary. Since you were in college when your life changed dramatically, how did your college help make accommodations for you, if they did at all?
Okay, as I said, I was up in New York, and I went to the University of New York in Albany. And they had a program that if you were in a wheelchair and of course you needed it, they assigned you a room. Instead of having, it would always have 2 people in it. As a wheelchair user, you got the same room with 1 person in it. And if you needed a higher bed, they did the real neat trick of putting 2 twin mattresses on top of each other to raise the bed high enough for you. Their dorm was new, so it was relatively accessible. And we also had RAs, your resident assistants, that for some reason, if it was snowy or below 0, which it was in New York, they would knock on your door and tell you, and it would unlock the tunnels so we could go through the tunnels, over to the classroom so we didn't have to go outside, which, they accommodated. They also had a student disability group, which I was on, that as I said, this was back in the 70s. So we had awareness days where we would put the college president and some of the professors and other students in wheelchairs for a day, or on crutches, or blindfolded so they could, experience what it was like to be blind. So my school did a lot in that. So it really, we also started my junior year, we started a wheelchair basketball team. We didn't have enough disabled players, so we took some of the attendants from other disabled students would play also. So, and my claim to fame on the basketball team is I grabbed a rebound shot and got hit in the face with the basketball and was carried off the court. So that was the end of my career as a basketball player. So does that answer the question?
I think it did. And that is an interesting way to end your basketball career.
Yes.
Jack, same question to you. I'm curious about your college experience as well.
Well, let me start back with my elementary experience, and I'll work up quickly to college. As I mentioned, I was diagnosed at 4 years. That's 1966 in a little state called Iowa. So nothing against the Iowans, but there's not a lot of progressive thinking in 1966 around the country, much less in the middle of the state. Mary, you can relate to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. New York could be more progressive than Iowa. My mom and dad had to fight a lot to get me mainstreamed. And when they did that, the first thing they do, and this is off a mother's intuition, and I'm grateful for my parents. We're still alive and they live in Plano, which is how we got to Texas. My mom told them, I want you to put my little Jackie at the front of the room so he can be close to the teacher. And then 2, I want him to have speech therapy. I could not speak. What you hear as I speak is 7 years of speech therapy training I got every week, and a lot of encouragement from others. Do not give up. Do not give up. So I was taught, talk, 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 talk. They couldn't understand me. I drove my sisters crazy. I was also told, especially from my mom, ask your dad a lot of questions. So I learned to be curious. So it starts with parents having to encourage their children to get through what's a very difficult transition with a disability. So with that, my mom set the stage. So from elementary school, middle school, high school, I had that additional attention. Stephanie, we are blessed today with what you and others do for our children with special needs. We didn't have that back when I was in school. Now, by the time I get to college, my mom and dad taught me from the very beginning, you are not handicapped. You actually have a gift. So they told me, don't think of it as a disadvantage. Think of it as an advantage. So when I got to college, there were no accommodation for me because I didn't consider myself special needs. I didn't consider myself disadvantaged. I didn't consider myself handicapped. I was just like everybody else. And I did not want special accommodations. I made the effort to do it myself. So I think that's healthy. Yes, you want help, but don't depend on everyone else. That's what we taught our son, John. You're going to get help. You have to have help, but you still can carry your own load. You're going to be a contributing member to our society. So that was how I was raised. And that's why I have probably a little different college experience than Mary. Did that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you so much. Kyla, I want to ask you a similar question. I know you haven't gone to college yet, but you're planning to. So I'm curious what your high school experience is like and if there are particular accommodations or supports that you get that you find helpful.
I get accommodations with the program. I'm pretty sure it's like 504. I get my own teacher's aide, like teacher helper, that my caseworker, basically. She makes sure that I have my accommodations with all my teachers, that I'm using them, and just keeping up to date with my accommodations, such as like reading the question out loud or getting extra time on homework or something like that.
Great, thank you. Yes.
If I may go back to what Mary said about basketball career, I played basketball too, Mary. I also was a basketball certified official. So in Michigan, I did a lot of basketball games as an official. I love officiating. I actually took my hearing aids off when I would officiate because the perspiration would get in the hearing aids, and I couldn't do that. They would damage the hearing aid. So, you know, if you go to a basketball game and people don't like the referee, they yell at them, right? They try to intimidate them. Well, my peer official knew that I couldn't hear them. He thought that is an advantage. You can't hear the fans yelling at you. So I was able to focus on the game and have fun. And no, they don't know that I can't hear them.
See, there's always advantages.
That's right, Mary.
I love that. Jack, this question's for you. When you were diagnosed at 4 years old, what were some of the solutions that your doctors gave you to help you experience the world?
That's a great question. And no one has ever asked me that question. There were no solutions offered. We were basically told you're on your own. My mom on her own took me to Chicago and had an IQ test done because her mother's intuition said if they institutionalized me, because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to put me away in an institution. Again, that's the dark ages, everybody. Please understand, we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go, which is why I value today's forum. So my mom on her own got an IQ test and my score was very high. So she went back to the State Board of Education of Iowa and said, I have a document that shows my son's IQ is too high for him to be institutionalized. You're going to harm him. So my mom fought to get me put into the school. That's how we got into the schools, because of that IQ test. After that, after they put me in the front of the classroom, and after my mom got me speech therapy, we were on our own. So there were no solutions offered. Now fast forward, when Patty and I got married in 1987, we moved here to Dallas. And I started my career at Parkland Memorial Hospital. I was told there's a world-renowned hearing doctor in Parkland. I went to meet with him. And I said, can you find out the cause of my hearing loss? Because if we can understand the cause, maybe we can give me a remedy. Maybe I can stop wearing these hearing aids. And he looked at me and he said, Jack, you're married. You've got 2 college degrees, a bachelor's and master's. Looks like you're going to be just fine in your life. You're a good man. You got good character. Go on with your life. Live with your hearing loss and make the most of your life. I said, wow, doctor, I didn't expect that answer. But he was so wise and he was so right. Accept who you are, accept what you have, and make the most of it. I think Mary and Kyla, you would agree with me, right?
Absolutely.
Mary or Kyla, do you want to add anything? Did that spark any comments from either of you?
I think accessibility has come a long ways. You know, I was, injured in the 70s, and it's a whole lot different than now. But even being injured in the 70s, trying now to find things, because I'm getting older, I'm senior citizens now, trying to find answers or stay up on equipment. It's very hard to find some place to go because wheelchairs changed from I call it my chrome chair, which back 70 years ago weighed over 50 pounds. And that's what you used. And now you've got the lightweight chairs. So when and I replace my chair about every 5 years just because of wear and tear. But where do you go for resources? They say, well, contact this person from a durable medical equipment company. And they look at you and say, well, what do you want? They don't even know what's available. So as being a disabled person, you have to stay on top of things. You've got to find out the questions asked, because there is no one solution or one place to go and get information that you really need.
Thank you for that. I bet that is really challenging to keep up with so much. You can't really rely on, the vendors or the stores and things to kind of tell you what's going on.
Yeah, I guess the only way I can relate to it is if you go out and buy a new car, how do you know which one fits you best? And there isn't one that fits anybody and that you can afford.
You've got to do your research for sure.
Yes.
But we're blessed. We have the internet. We did not have that 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
So I had to live 30 years before the internet. My mom and dad had to do what they did before the internet. What that meant was we pick up the phone, we call.
Yeah.
We call. most of the time people would hang up, or I don't know would be the response. But you never stop. You never give up.
You go through the yellow pages or the blue pages, and I bet you nobody here except you, Jack, remember what the blue pages were.
I do.
No.
All right, we've got another question for Mary. What was your major in college, and did your major change after surgery?
Well, my major before surgery was freshman 101. I don't know, but I don't want to go to work, so I'm going to college. Was what it was. Afterwards, it was like, what? There was nothing really particular. Most wheelchair disabled people back then went into social work because social work dealt with disabilities, therefore it would move along with who you are. I didn't want that. So I was looking at my resume and found out, well, not too bad in math, not too bad in physics. So I got my BS in math and physics. So that's kind of what it was. It was just, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to stay in college because I don't want to go to work. So.
Well, and that's a good example too of not having your disability define you, and kind of following your passion instead of, you know, sort of what society might have expected of you at the time.
Right.
Kyla, this one is for you. What is something that you have overcome or accomplished in spite of your life challenges that you're proud of?
I wouldn't say that I've overcome a lot because I'm still living my life. I'm very young. I'm only 16. But something I'm very proud of is being able to like level up in from on level to like honors, and I'm able to do that by myself without any help as much as I would have had in the past. And then just being able to just do stuff by myself, I guess. So that's something I'm very proud of. I had resources for me in middle school, and I learned techniques in order to help me with being in class with ADHD and, you know, focusing and being able to get my work done. And that really helped me, and I'm very proud of that. That's my accomplishment.
That's great. Thank you, Kyla. This question is kind of for everybody, and you might answer it a little differently, but what's one thing that you want others to be able to do to help you? And then what are some ways that you might not want help? So how do you ask for help, and then how do you decline help?
Well, I'll take it first. That's kind of a question that's really got a lot of answers. If I'm out by myself, you know, I'm independent once I'm in my chair. So it's like, you know, I don't really need any help, but there are people that want to offer you help. So, you know, if I say no, thank you, please take that as I appreciate your asking, but no, I really don't need help. It's the ones that try to keep asking you or start to grab something to help you. It's like, no, this is me. I can do it. You know, and you can tell even with my kids' friends when they were little, you could tell people how people pushed your wheelchair. You know, if my kids pushed it, trust me, they weren't real careful about it. You know, they would just take off and do it. But if people that kind of had what I guess I'm going to use the word pity or, you know, felt for you, you could tell how they pushed the chair. And when those people got a hold of the chair, it's like, no, thank you. I don't need help. So it's just, I wish people, when somebody's been disabled, that would say no, just to accept that, no matter how hard it's coming from your heart or whatever. It's just no. If I can do it, please let me do it. Yes, it may take me a few more minutes, but please let me do it because that's how I stay independent.
Kyla, do you want to go next?
Sure. I guess I when I accept help, I will usually ask for it. But it's very, like, I rarely ask for help. I like being independent, just like Mary. I don't ask for help a lot, but when I do, it's usually when I'm very overwhelmed and I'm almost like in tears because I'm working on a project or something and I just feel like I can't get it. And that's when I would ask for help. So I'm just getting better at asking for help, I guess, and declining it as well.
I really like that question because it goes right to the heart and soul of everything we're talking about. So whoever asked that question, thank you. It's a two-part question. I'm going to answer it by talking about what I tell others and coaching them. So my younger son, Kurt, is an Eagle Scout with Boy Scouts. Before I joined Edward Jones and after I left IBM, I worked for Boy Scouts in Richardson. And before that, I was an adult leader and I taught a Boy Scout course called, it's a merit badge course called Disabilities Awareness. And in that course, I talked specifically about what Mary just said. We teach the Scouts person first language. It's a person with a disability, not a handicapped person. And with that, Mary, I would talk to the Scouts that if you address somebody in a wheelchair, you politely ask them if they would like help. And if they say no, respect that answer and never look down. I also told them never lean down, don't bend down, don't go on your knees and try to be their level. You think you're being kind, but you're actually insulting the person with disability by coming down. You're making them be singled out, making them realize I am in a wheelchair, which is not what you want to do. It's hard for people to understand that. So I appreciate what you said, Mary. And I've taught that to other Scouts and I teach that to everybody I can in my walks of life. Now for me, when I was growing up, young people didn't understand what these hearing aids. Now back then, this hearing aid, which you see in my ear, was much longer. They were bigger. Nowadays, it's cool to wear a Bluetooth or a phone in the ear. Back then it wasn't. It was strange. It was a device people didn't understand. So when I was, Kyla, when I was your age and younger, new kids who didn't know me, they would see this, they would attempt to punch me. They would hit me, they would hurt me to see if I would cry with pain. And early on in Iowa, they would take bats to me, they would hit me. They didn't understand what I was wearing, they didn't like it. So they attempted to hit me with a fist or a bat to hurt me. And see, my mom then taught me, defend yourself. Defend yourself if somebody's gonna try to hit you. Again, it's a different time back then. Now they're more sensitive, more aware. As far as asking for help, I have told everybody, starting with my children, if I can't see you, I can't hear you, because I was taught to read lips. So when I look at people, I always look at them and I give them my full attention so I can hear. My eyes are an extension of my ears. So I tell people, if I can't see you, I can't hear you. So that's really the only help I ask people. And most people, once they get to know me, they understand. They need to look at me when they're talking to me if they want me to hear them. So that's really the only ask I ask of others.
That's helpful, and it leads into our next question. It says, in our tradition, we believe that all people are created equal, meaning if you have a special need in one area, you might exceed others in other areas. So what do you consider areas where you are excelling over others?
I could go first.
Great.
In school, with ADHD, I definitely struggle in reading and science. Those are like the worst subjects for me. But I excel in math and arts and basically anything that is outside of the box from like other students.
Mary, you want to go next or do you want me to?
Yeah, I will. I guess is my humor. That's what keeps me going. And I'll smile at anything. Most people won't see, but that's just who I am. I have to joke around. I joke around about it. It's part of me. You take me as I am. So that's what keeps me going. I think that's part of my uniqueness, is I just keep going with humor.
My answer would be concentration. I was taught to read lips, so I'm looking at the lips, but I've now been hard of hearing for 54 years, 55 years. I just turned 59 this week. So I've had 55 years of experience. So looking at people, I've met a lot, tens of thousands of people, and I know how to read lips, but I also can know whether they're telling me the truth or not. Because I learned people don't lie through their eyes. They may lie through their mouth or their facial expression, say one thing when they really mean something else, but they never lie with the eyes. And I've had a chance, I'm the FBI Citizens Academy grad, and I was also the DEA Citizens Academy grad, and I have an MBA, so I have 3 college degrees. I've had a lot of education because I was raised to concentrate. I was able to focus on learning with the attention. So I've been able to elevate my levels of concentration. That's probably higher than others. If I could also say, I love what Helen Keller once said. She was asked by a reporter. She was famous for having no senses except touch. And she was asked, if you could keep one of your 5 senses and give up the other 4, which one would you keep? Now, if I may ask you ladies in front of me, raise your hand if you would say sight. She would want to keep sight and give up the others. Okay, one of you raised your hand. That's what most people say. She said, no, I want hearing, because hearing involves people. Sight can involve people, but also inanimate object like this statue behind me that doesn't have a relationship. She said relationships are formed primarily through audio, through sound, hearing people. So she would give up everything else and keep her sense of hearing. So what she said was, we make up for our deficiencies with other areas of our bodies and mind and soul. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us powerful. But others need to recognize that and give us the chance, to Mary's point, to be recognized with those skills, and don't look down on us, don't take pity on us, but give us the ability to elevate ourselves to be equal to others, if not more than others, in what we give back.
Thank you for that. And that question sparked a lot of other questions that are pretty similar. So I'm going to kind of summarize them all together. And this is for you, Jack. If you're reading lips, we're very curious how things have been going during the pandemic with so many people wearing masks and just having that barrier that maybe wasn't present before.
Thank you for that question. My wife and I and family are members of First United Methodist Church, Coppell. We've been there for 30 years, and I'm pointing in the direction where the church is from here. I can see it from my office. Our senior pastor is Tom Palmer. He's a good man. He's our 4th senior pastor that Patty and I have had since we've been with the church. I noticed last year when we started bringing back our members into the church after we had to shelter everybody out for the first 3 to 4 months. When we came back, I'm also an usher team lead, so I do a lot of ushering. But I'm in the sanctuary and he's got his mask on and he's giving the sermon. I can't understand him, and I want to. Yes, I can hear something, but I can't understand him. So after the service, I asked them, would you please remove the mask? You are more than 6 feet separated from everybody else. You're at least 20 feet apart. So I told him that afterward. He said, thank you for telling me that, Jack. Many people wouldn't come up to me and tell me that.
No.
So the following Sunday, he did remove the mask. And so I can understand him better. But it's hard. It's hard. So what's funny is when I think somebody's smiling behind that mask, I look at the eyes, because the eyes will tell you if they're smiling. You'll see a sparkle in those eyes. So I've had to adjust because of the mask to understand what's being said, looking more at the eyes. I hope that answers the question.
I think it did. We have also, in Coppell School District, we've purchased some masks with clear insets because a lot of times when we're working in small groups, we don't have the luxury of being 6 feet away. And so I think that that has helped some, but I know that it's not a perfect solution. It's still a barrier. Sometimes plexiglass, if we can get some on the table so that creates a physical barrier that's see-through. I know that that's something else that we've tried to put into place, but there are a lot of barriers right now that we certainly did not anticipate. So yes.
Stephanie, you're right. You can see the face, you can see the lip, but the sound is still muffled. It's still hard to hear. But you know what's nice, Stephanie, is that when people, it's like when you go to a foreign country and you try to say a few words in the native language and people see that, they appreciate it. So if you see the effort being made, people with disabilities will appreciate it. I think Mary and Kyla would agree. We're like everybody else. We're all in it together.
Of course, of course. And this kind of leads into the next question. Is there a right way to ask, for people to ask you about your disability? Or they're wondering, would it be rude to ask a person with a disability what their disability is? And Mary, let's start with you.
That's a great question. I think first I'll kind of say, I do a lot of walking on the trails over at Andrew Park West. And a lot of times, since the playground's there, I see a lot of little kids. And they'll point or they'll say something and say, why is she in a wheelchair? And some parents kind of try to whisk their kids away because, they're pointing and looking at me. And I wish the parents would just let me answer the child, because that way, I smile at them. I've had little kids on bicycles say you want to race. So I've tried to race them on the trails, and of course, let them win because they're faster than me anyhow. But, I am who I am. And, asking me questions, I can choose not to answer them, but go ahead and ask me, because I may not be direct, but at least you're interested in me. And there's a lot in what Jack said. We get to know people. We know the tone of their voice. So we know if they're asking because they're curious, or because they care, or because they just want to know. As I said, my grandkids are young, and of course, they know me, they grew up with me, but their friends haven't. So the friends will ask me, and that's okay, or they'll answer for their friends. So I'd rather have somebody ask me, because I can choose to say no. But at least if you're curious enough to ask me, maybe that'll help another person down the road who has another different disability, and they're more accepting to them. So that's kind of what I say.
Kyla, how about you?
It's very different for me since I don't have anything like visual like Mary and Jack. But in school, I usually am pulled out of the classroom when we're taking a test to go into a small group. And it's embarrassing when they kind of talk about you, like, why is she leaving? Oh, she must be stupid or something. But I'm not embarrassed at all. If you come and ask me, oh, why are you going? I'll tell you, I have ADHD. I go to a small group to focus. It's not something I'm embarrassed about. So it's very simple. It's just come right out and say it to me. I'd rather you do that than talk behind my back.
Thank you.
I appreciate the question. I'd like to answer it on behalf of not only myself, but mostly my son, John. I like being asked the question, because when I was young, I tried to hide these hearing aids. When I found out later, it doesn't pay. So when you see people would see the hearing aids, they would ask, and I want them to ask, because what people don't understand is twofold. What I've learned in my life and what I share with others is, first of all, nobody has perfect hearing. Everybody has a degree of hearing loss. There's not such thing as 20/20 in hearing like you think of in vision. So everybody losing hearing. And because you don't know you have a hearing loss, you don't know what you're missing. So I tell people you should be wearing hearing aids. The technology now is so superior over what it was when I started wearing them. And I would wear a body aid, which was a cord that went up to my ear. So I want people to ask so I can tell them, you don't know what you're missing. Get your hearing tested. So I want those questions. Okay, so I would speak out on behalf. The second reason I would tell them is, and I told my scouts is in disability awareness, the minute you realize that we all have a disability, whether we know it or not, it's the great equalizer. It makes everybody equal, because we all do have a disability. We may not know it or may be willing to accept it. If we do that, everybody is equal. So parents have thanked me for that. For my son, John, he has an IQ of less than 70. He has a rare disease called histiocytosis. He was diagnosed at 14 months. So through John's experience, Patty and I become wish parents. So John is a Make-A-Wish child. So I help wish families. and helping them fulfill their wishes. Through John, I've got a chance to help experience what Stephanie, you and your staff do through the ARDS meetings and the special need meetings and the special education programs that we have in Coppell and elsewhere. So people don't ask John because John doesn't know what he has. John is very innocent. He'll always be innocent. I tell people John has an IQ that makes him a 12-year-old forever in intellect, but he's more or less a 60-year-old in spirit. So he's very innocent. So he's sweet John. So people will ask me, how's John? Well, they haven't seen him in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. People remember people like John because they're touched. And we think of John as an angel.
I love that. Thank you, Jack. And I just kind of wanted to add, just in my work with different families and parents with children with disabilities, particularly autism, sometimes you might think of that one as sort of an invisible disability or something that is not something that you can physically see, similar to what Kyla mentioned. And a lot of times when I talk with them, they say, if I'm in the grocery store and my kiddo's having a meltdown or, not behaving or not listening to me, or repeating themselves, doing a lot of things that they would typically do, strangers either are, kind of standoffish and judging and giving looks. And like Jack said, you can tell in people's face, what they're thinking and what they're feeling, especially if this is your life and you're used to those sorts of responses. And my friends and other parents tell me that the best thing to do is to, first of all, have compassion and respect for that person. And if they look like they need help, then maybe offer to help, a helping hand. Grab that thing that they're trying to reach from the top shelf if they're trying to also deal with their little kiddo, and or just give them like a smile and an encouraging look. But you don't have to necessarily stop in the grocery store and ask, does your child have autism? That might not be the best time, but at the park and playing, and if other kids are interested in one little one's having a hard time kind of interacting with the group or figuring out a way to enter the group, then that might be a good time to say, is there something that we can do to help our kids play together? So just kind of knowing your situation and knowing what's happening around you, I think that there are appropriate times to really inquire about people's disabilities and how you can help.
And Stephanie, as a parent, I want to do a shout out to you and Kyla. We were touched. Our younger two children, Emma and Kurt, went to New Tech High. And New Tech High is all about service orientation. The high school is as well, but New Tech High incorporates service in the mission and the purpose and philosophy. And we love New Tech, by the way. I've seen the signs around Coppell. I was really touched by how they would put on senior proms for people with disabilities like John and just embrace them. So John had the pleasure of having a couple of proms thanks to New Tech while he was at Coppell High about 9 years ago. So it's a shout out to all of you for making our community so much richer, especially people with disabilities. John's also with Coppell Special Olympics and very involved there as well. So it's a shout out to you guys for that. Thank you.
That is great. And actually, we've had to make some adjustments to our Special Olympics competitions recently. In the past, we would bring schools together and they would maybe play basketball against 2 different schools, but we've been able to do a skills competition at each campus instead, because we know that getting too many kids together has been rough. So, certainly during this time, we've had to make some adjustments, but thank you for recognizing that there are a lot of great groups and organizations out there willing to help. And it leads right into our next question, which is CISD and local churches have been identified as great resources for families with special needs. Are there other local resources available for support? So I'm curious from all of you if there are local resources that you use. And then a follow-up question to that would be, what do you wish we had here in Coppell? Who wants to start?
May I start?
Absolutely.
That's actually what I was trying to do. The vision behind my coming to Edward Jones was to establish a vision where I help families with traditional needs and special needs, because I see there's a world of need in this community, especially in Coppell, given what we experienced for John. So that's why I was asked by the Region 10 to get out and help and share the knowledge that Patty and I got from TJ, who who is our financial advisor. So I'm one of very few that getting the word out, but it really comes down to the parents need to know about it and they need to get the guidance to start. So I offer myself as a resource. I'm doing this at no cost to help people know. And Stephanie, I'll look at you and ask, like I did for Misty Lynch and for the parents in the fall of 2019, I would love to do it again. I have not talked to Misty, but I would like to help as a local resource and get started. As far as what we need in Coppell, I talked to other parents. Maybe many of you know Bennett Ratliff, who used to be on our school board, and his wife Becky. They have a son named Thomas, who's John's age. And we don't have any group homes in Coppell in this part of the Metroplex. Most of the services provided through, for example, ARC of Dallas, or I just went blank, and it's a big firm in Plano that provides support for people with disabilities, and they provide a day hab service. They're not in the Coppell area. You got to go to Plano, you got to go to Frisco, you got to go Fort Worth. We have literally a black hole in Coppell and outside to help families with disabilities, especially when they graduate from high school. After they leave high school, it's like going off a cliff as far as available resources. So we've got to help them. It's called My Possibilities in Plano. I know them very well, and I'm supporting their efforts. So I appreciate the question, Stephanie. We've got to do more, especially past high school. We also got to do more to get the kid and parent to know about the Medicaid program waiver list when the child is 2. We didn't know until John was 12. We lost 10 years of waiting. There is a critical need to help people find places to live should their parents pass away and get funding through the state and federal government. It starts with knowing about the list and knowing when the child is 2, not 22, because there's 20 years of waiting for some of those services. So I'll stop there. I think you understand. I know a lot. I'll offer myself as a resource to anybody here and outside of this forum because I'm passionate about this. We've been blessed for what John has. We see the need and we want to help provide. I think Jan Lorraine asked me to be here today because she knew that.
Thank you, Jack. And also, just for our participants to know, we have put together a resource list that we'll make available to all the participants that have different resources, agencies, and community partners that might be of interest to you. And then if you do need additional resources or have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me directly at in Coppell ISD. And Jack, thank you for also offering your services as well. We appreciate that. Mary, how about you? What are some community resources that you use? And then what do you wish we had?
Okay, the one resource I use is North Texas United Spinal Association. And it's really for spinal cord injuries, so they have a lot of, they used to have weekly meetings or monthly meetings, but of course with everything that's going on, they do it virtually. So it's not quite as good as getting together, but it's there. The one thing that I ran across in Coppell is I retired about 4 years ago and we joined the Senior Citizen Center because we've only been in Coppell about 10 years, thinking then that would be a good way to meet people, to do things. And they used to do a supper once a month. They'd get a bus and they all go out to dinner together. So we thought we'd sign up because that would be fun. And when I went to sign up, they'd never used accessible transportation. So there was no way I could go on those outings because I would have to drive and follow the bus. Most of what you're meeting is talking on the bus. So my husband's still a member of Senior Citizen, but I haven't renewed mine. So that's kind of where I am on Coppell is, maybe we're a little behind 8 ball, but I also can see there's a lot of expense for accessible transportation, So, I mean, you can see both ends. So where we go from there, I don't know, but that's the one thing I've occurred in Coppell. Now the trails and the parks, they're phenomenal. I spend, as I say, I try to do 3 to 5 miles at least 5 times a week. So I'm at Andrew Park using the trails all the time. So,
Well, it sounds like we've made some progress, but we've got somewhere to go as well. Thank you for that. Kyla, I know we missed you for just a minute, but I wanted to turn it back to you and see, are there community resources that you use, or things at school or outside of school? And if so, what do you use? And then also, are there things that you wish we had here in Coppell?
I usually use resources from school. There's not a lot of support in the community, I guess, for ADHD, which is funny because I know like a handful of students with the exact thing I have. And I just would like to see, like, I don't know, like kind of like a study group type of thing where like people come together with this type of disorder and I don't know, talk about school, talk about how they're dealing with it, and that's what I would like to see.
Hey, Stephanie, I go back to what Mary said. Mary, you hit it right on the nail. We've got to provide more accessible transportation for people with disabilities, especially who are wheelchair bound. I've talked about this with City Council for a long, long time. I've also known in John's experience, when he went to El Centro Community College in downtown Dallas, I would have to drive him into Las Colinas to the Irving Public Library at 6 a.m. so he could catch the first handicap ride that provided through DART. And it was by appointment only. And most of the time they were at least 30 minutes late. And it was already a 3-hour ride for John to get to his class in El Centro College in downtown South Dallas. So I picked up the phone and I called DART and I said, unacceptable. So they had me go to a board meeting and they heard what I said. And then they asked me, would you join the board? We need someone like you to help us improve. I said, I can't, I'm busy, but I appreciate the thought. Well, I know the city of Coppell is looking for maybe bringing DART into Coppell to address that problem. John June is our newest city council member, and I've been talking about this for 2 years. He said he's committed to help the council address this problem because Mary wants independent. Mary needs accessible transportation so that she can be independent and go anywhere in the Metroplex. Would you agree, Mary?
yeah, unfortunately, I have my own transportation, but I'm sure there are lots of seniors or any age that, and that's one thing, I don't think I've ever met another wheelchair person or spinal cord injury in Coppell. So am I that unique here?
I think they're there, Mary. They just don't speak up.
Yeah.
That's what we know. We're dealing with this underground community and the city doing, and thank you, Stephanie, CISD doing what you can.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone. That's why this forum is wonderful. Raising the awareness and get all of us to work together.
And we had a comment in the chat in regards to this topic that I think will be helpful. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. It says, my name is Corey Allen, and I am the ADA coordinator for the city of Coppell. Thank you so much to all of you for your time and sharing your heart with us. Mary, in regards to transportation and the senior center, we as a city of Coppell are required under Title II of the ADA to accommodate you. I apologize that you haven't been able to attend the events and to be involved more. And then there's a contact number that we will share with you after the meeting. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's things like this, where we might not know that there's an issue. And I know that in my role, especially when working with parents, sometimes I don't know what I don't know. So I think that it is really helpful to kind of speak up and say, I had this concern or this problem. Transportation is really tricky. It is absolutely required and, something that we should be able to accommodate. And I think that, for school buses and things like that, we know that it's a requirement, but when we think outside of the school system and we think about the city and what's available, then, hopefully in the future, we will have some options that are, they might be there right now. We just don't know about all of them, but they're more readily available. And I think that it's conversations like this that can really, really help move that along.
I got to do a shout out on that on school buses. With our experience with John, the school district was wonderful providing transportation for John through the school bus system. So when I talk about the needs, I'm really talking about beyond the scope of CISD. I'll be very clear to the audience. CISD and the city of Coppell have done a yeoman job, but yes, there's more to be done. I'm talking about once the person leaves CISD, they've graduated, or they're not really actively involved in the community. We've got to help them too. We've got to reach out in Coppell and provide that for everyone.
And there is a another comment in the chat, Jack, and it says the city does use SPAN, S-P-A-N, transportation for accessible rides around the city of Coppell and surrounding areas. And there's a website for their information. And I'm going to put that in the chat so that everybody can see it.
And I'm aware of that as well.
Okay,
I
perfect.
don't know if people use it. It didn't work for John. We couldn't get that all the way down to Dallas.
I'm adding it in the chat just in case, but you're right. I can understand that if it doesn't, you know, you have to kind of think about the area. So getting around Coppell.
That's what we got to do. We got to be networking more. Yep. It's all pretty much standalone resources. We got to network.
Absolutely.
It's hard work. I'm not pretending this is easy. It's hard work, but the effort is there. We can do more.
Well, and I think, you know, again, conversations like this, and I celebrate the library for really putting this on and pulling this together, because it is an opportunity to have these conversations, and people might not realize that a problem exists or that there's a way to even do something better. So I know that I have taken some notes on some things that I can go back to in my own role and make some tweaks and adjustments. So hopefully this was a good learning opportunity for many of you. We don't have any other questions in the Q&A, but if I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to kind of say any last comments, or is there something we didn't ask that you wish we did? So we will start. Kyla, how about we start with you? Is there anything that you wanted to say in closing?
I'm very blessed to be able to talk about my experience with ADHD and how I'm able to go through the whole day with it. It definitely affects me day to day, and I'm glad that I have resources and I'm able to reach out to people, and I was able to learn all of these new techniques that help me with it.
Thank you, Kyla. We certainly appreciate you being here and sharing your perspective. Thank you so much. Jack, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you. Thank you again, Stephanie. Thank you again, Sarah. Thank you for everyone for being a participant here. I do want to leave one thought with you. As many of you know now, I'm a financial advisor and I'm helping families prepare for their future. But I'm doing it a little bit differently than most people. I'm doing more than just talking about traditional needs. I'm doing special needs. And when I was preparing for a Region 10 presentation one time, I had an aha moment. I began to realize everybody wants to have a good future. Everybody wants to have a good retirement. And yes, it takes money to make that possible. But just because you're disabled doesn't mean you don't want the same thing. So I began to realize they want that same thing. So for the Region 10 people, I put together this document that I'm very happy to share with others. What this is saying is this world of traditional needs is talking about planning for things like preparing for the unexpected that we all had to live through with COVID, all the way up to college savings and retirement and estate planning. But guess what? You can do the same thing with the world of special needs, starting with getting on the Texas Medicaid program waiver list. And at the very top is the ABLE account. People don't know that you can invest for a person with disability, just like a college savings plan, and give them more money that's investable to have a better future. ABLE was passed by Congress about 10 years ago, and it stands for Achieving Better Living Experience. It's similar to what Mary alluded to with the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1992, signed by the first President, George Bush. That was intended to help people with disabilities. ABLE's the same way. There's so much out there, but so few people know about it. So my ask of everyone on this call is, if you know a financial advisor who understands the world of disability, engage them, make them a part of a planning effort. If you don't know where to turn and you want me to help you, I will. But the point is, you've got to know, and then you got to act. By knowing, then you can act. If you don't know what you don't know, like Stephanie said. That's the world that Patty and I were in before we met TJ, thanks to Debbie Gaunt. Stephanie, she put us in touch with TJ, and then our world opened up. And now it's a beautiful world. But there are a lot of other people who want that same opportunity and grow their world too. So yes, I'm passionate about this. I see the potential for everyone. So hopefully people will see from today, there are hope. There is hope for people with disabilities, but don't think of it as a disability.
Thank you, Jack. Mary, how about you?
Okay, to wrap things up. One, you know, Coppell is wonderful. I mean, but if you don't know the questions to ask, you don't know if there's a problem. And a lot of people, including myself, you know, if I don't understand something, I can't help it. So, I mean, we all, you know, there just has to be more information available for everybody. But that's what the internet helps us with. So I think with everybody, if you see me on the trails, stop and say hi. If you have questions, ask. You know, I've had, you know, people stop me at the grocery store and I'm sitting there waiting for my husband to come down the aisle, but they say, can I help you get something off the top shelf? I love that, you know, so don't be afraid to ask questions, but also I guess I should ask more questions if there's something I need in Coppell. You know, we're so easy to point a finger at, you know, the government not providing me this information. If they don't know, how can they provide it to you? So we all have to speak up. And I think that's it. Whether, you know, you're 2, 62, whatever, if you need something, try to find a solution.
That is great. Thank you so much. And especially thank you to Jack, Mary, and Kyla, our panelists today. I am sure I'm not alone in thinking I have just learned so much. I appreciate you opening up your hearts to us, being vulnerable with, you know, sharing some things that people might not know about you or about your situation. And so hopefully all of us leave here with a little bit more understanding and a little bit more curiosity about our neighbors. And I think that that's really the purpose of this event. I think that it's been really helpful, and something that Jack said earlier in the program about being the great equalizer. Events like this really are, where we're able to come together and share with one another and ask questions, open and honest. So I want to also, again, thank the library, Sarah and JJ especially, for putting this event together, and the committee that came together and thought that this was important, and I think that it is. So thank you again to all of our participants, to all of our panelists, and to the committee, community builders that put it together. Sarah or JJ, was there anything else to kind of close it up?
No, I think you, again, just thank you everybody. And also thank you, Stephanie. You did a fantastic job moderating. And, you know, I really appreciate all the panelists and everybody sharing their stories today. So, and I will send out the list of resources to everyone signed up for the program today. So you guys will receive that today or tomorrow. And again, thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.